What is the biggest mistake of your life? I look forward to your answers to this question. What is the biggest mistake of your life? Enjoy the show. Story 1. Made the wrong choice for a relationship. Had two casual things going on, and decided to stick with one of the two. We were together for about a year before she moved back home. And looking back, I don't think she cared for me like I did for her. Everything was on her terms rather than agreeing together, that kind of thing. Didn't really communicate with the other girl properly and ended up losing a really good friendship that I still miss today. And that was over 10 years ago. Story 2. Becoming an addict and not graduating high school or going to college. I know that's 3, but I regret all of those on a pretty constant basis. I believe my life and my kids' lives would be so much better if I had not started doing drugs before I was a teenager, finished school, and went on to college. I'm glad to say I'm now nearly 6 years sober. However, I'm trying to dig myself out of a hole I spent over 20 years digging. Story 3. Biggest mistake would being born, since I have not done any good whatsoever, and I'm only 23. All I've done has been hurting people emotionally. Also, I blame myself how my mother treated me. Did I deserve it? Probably. Yeah, being abused emotionally and emotional neglect has done nothing for me but hurt me, and I deserve it. Story 4. Biggest mistake and my greatest blessing was meeting my ex-wife. Was a serious waste of almost half of my life. I was treated like shit, used and lied to the whole time. The only part that I don't regret are my kids. I absolutely love them. But their mother, like I said, used and abused me. She cheated on me a few times, and after beating my self-esteem down to extremely low levels, I would forgive and try to salvage life. I had to work out of town because the job market was and still is shit, and working on the road I made good money. $100,000 plus a year. And she didn't work, she just stayed home and spent. She financially abused me as well. On paydays I would have to go to the ATM and take out $100 so that I knew that I would have gas money to make it back home. There was times that I had to borrow some money from my work friends so I could go home. There was also times that she would wipe out our checking account, and if she still wanted to buy something, she would apply for credit cards in my name and max them out right away too. When I finally filed for divorce, I also had to file for bankruptcy because she left me with over $30,000 in credit card debt alone. Also, the bank repossessed my commuter car. She was a mistake. She ruined me. I'm still mentally fucked up after 9 years when she just up and left me and the kids and took the only vehicle that could fit the family. But even though I'm still kind of messed up, I, along with help from my new wife, who is fucking amazing and incredibly patient with me, have made lots of progress with my mental health and kept a fairly stable home for the kids. Story 5. In my mid-20s, I'm 48. I got a DUI. I went to court and they sentenced me to take this alcohol drug class. The fee was $500 and I told the clerk I didn't have the money. She gave me another court date a month later to come back with the fee. I didn't come up with the cash, so I just never went back to court. Eventually, I had a warrant out for me. But I had moved, so the cops didn't find me when they went to my old place. For 7 years, I had a warrant out for me, and that I did nothing about. Just lived my life looking over my shoulder. I dealt with the stress it gave me with drugs and booze. I wasted all that time living in fear. It really was a shitty time because I was paranoid 100% of the time. I tried to fill my life with as much shallow pleasure as I could to try to mask how incredibly stressed and scared I was. I really could write a book about those 7 years and how shitty they were and how I still feel anxious and nervous all the time. Even to this day, I started dating this girl, now my wife, who I finally broke down to and told her my situation. I hadn't told anyone in all that time what was going on. She helped me fix all the problems I created and get my shit together. I'll never forget the feeling I had when I went to my last court date or when I walked out of the DMV with a new license, knowing all that was finally over. Story 7. I grabbed a car on finance a couple years ago and it's put me in $30K debt and depression. I live in NZ, so it's technically like $20K for someone in America, but it's currently really hard to live over here due to the cost of living and lack of well-paying jobs, for one with no experience. It got to the point where I was messaging people for financial help. Story 8. Being scared to take risks when it comes to women. I am a very confident person who has focused on career heavy and been successful. Trying to find love now, early 30s, shows me I should have taken a chance when I was much younger with girls I was legitimate friends with. Dating seems so serious now and not as much fun. It's been hard for me to develop a real connection with the women I date now. Story 9. Giving all my savings to my BF at the time, as he was steep in debt. We had a toxic relationship, and he broke up with me, begged me to be his friend, and just continued to take. Last thing I regret doing the most was sneaking money from my mom's account to help him get a visa as he promised to send it back the day after, and still to this day silence. And he swears he's the best thing that has ever happened to me. Story 10. Being a dick to my wife and doing dumb shit and pushing her away emotionally, when in reality she taught me how to really love. We had a son together, shit got bad financially, because of a fucked up situation that's too long to explain. But I got screwed out of about 10 grand after that shit went downhill fighting all the time, and then boom, one day she came and sat down in my lap and said, "You know how much I love you, right?" I said, "Yeah," she says, "but I'm not in love with you anymore. My dad has just died." I was in a bad spot mentally all around, and she just saw that as crazy, because a lot ID the times I'd end up taking it out in her without meaning to. Now she's with this dude that's buying her cars and all this other shit, like, I can't too that he's spoon-fed, gets daddy's money, and then he'd around my son playing house with my MF wife and kid. I can't stand it, but that's the worst thing I ever did was push and push until she left. Right at the 4th years, takes my kid disappear for like 8 months, tells me. I can't come to his party because he's and is there and she invited I'm a nut. So she was scared and was gonna stomp him out. I can be bigger than that for my son, and he lives with me most of the time. She gets him on weekends anyways. I hate her ugly fucking twig of a boyfriend she calls a man because he has his shit together, and he younger than me because his parents gave him everything. He works at Home Depot, but has a 5-bedroom house, finished basement, upstairs, 2 bathrooms, and had 3 cats. And he's 22, I'm 26. It just pisses me off that she acts like he's better than me at everything, even being a dad. And I'm rambling, but the worst thing I ever did was push her away until she left. Now my son can't have the one thing I always swore my kid would have if I had a kid. And it was both his parents together in a healthy relationship and living right together. And it breaks my heart that she doesn't ever want to do that again. I'm done. But that's the worst thing I ever did. If you love her, bro, take her a walk or drive. Don't take it out on her. She don't deserve it, because once that baby and her are gone, you'll have the first shame and resentment towards yourself because you running the one thing you always wanted but never had, and that's a good family. But fuck me. Genuine people are so hard to find nowadays. The last of a dime breed talk. Stay solid. And if you feel if what I said I'm context to you in your life, please take heed to my advice. Didn't I DK her away? Let her know you feel us, and if you do and she leaves, still fuck it. Let it go, but didn't push her away. Don't take it out on her, bros. Peace, love from the ones to above. Story 11. Breaking my promises to others and myself. You have the rest of your life to build trust in yourself, but you can't get those opportunities back. And if you break the trust of others, you rarely get a second chance, and you never get a third. Damn, I miss my friends. The situations were gray, but I don't care what the morally correct choice was. I just want my friend back, or at the absolute very least, to undo the pain I caused and try to set things right. They didn't deserve that pain or feeling of betrayal, not in the slightest. They deserved a good friend, and I wasn't it. God, I'm so sorry. One word has really changed my life. Story 12. I wish I had checked on my wife sooner. I thought she was sleeping. I knew she wasn't feeling well, and I wanted to let her rest. If only I had just gone in to ask her the question, but I decided to wait. I would have been able to call 911 sooner. I could have started doing compressions sooner. It might have saved her life. I try not to beat myself up about it, but I know I'll always have that what-if scenario in my head. I know that even if I had found her sooner, it might not have changed the outcome. It might have, though. Story 13. Staying with my ex for so long. He was awful for the majority of the relationship and was becoming increasingly physical. But one night he was blacked out drunk and recklessly drove us home because I couldn't drive a stick. NYE and no cabs. Not an excuse, I know. And then proceeded to choke me, bash in my windshield, and rip out my window when I tried to leave. I went to his hearing a month or two later and pleaded his case. Waited for him in jail and continued to see him for another 10 months where he still treated me awful. I can't believe I thought so little of myself to stay with someone so disgusting. I still hold a lot of hatred for him, but I probably wouldn't if I had just left earlier. Story 14. Honestly wasting my childhood trying to change toxic people who can't change. They'll never love me. They're both narcissists. All I had to endure the first 17 years of my life could have been avoided if I stopped trying to get them to like me, let alone love me. Story 15, I have 3 that come to mind. Bought a truck in cash, and through a drop in communication between my fiancé and I, it had no insurance. Got stolen a couple days later and I was out the money. Never found the truck. Invested money in a friend's business and now having to sue him for non-payment breach of contract. And 3, Early in my career, I had a choice to make: move closer to work or move work closer to home. I chose to change jobs, and I believe if I had stayed there, I would be better off than I am right now. Story 16. Breaking up with my boyfriend. We knew each other for a month before we had to go long distance for 6 months. At the beginning of month 5, I broke up with him because the distance was too much for me, and a few other personal reasons that had nothing to do with him. Fast forward 3 months, we reconnect. I get cold feet, and life got in the way, so I stopped talking to him. Fast forward another 3 months, I reach out to him, and to my surprise, he responds. We've been together again for 4 months, and I regret the fact that I broke up with him every single day. He is the most amazing man in the world, and I'm beyond grateful we're back together, and I'm not going to screw it up this time. Story 17. Catching feelings for someone only to get used for money. Thought I was doing the right thing as a man, helping her when she needed, buying her stuff, surprising her with small gifts, helping her with care packages for friends, showing her I could provide with what I could. All that stuff only to get discarded when someone new came along. Lesson learned was I'm never helping anyone with anything ever again, and being extremely selective with who I give my feelings to. Story 18. Starting university 3 days after I graduated high school. I'm telling you now, it completely ruined the experience for me, and I couldn't take any joy in learning about something I absolutely loved doing. I studied audio engineering and sound production, and to this day I can still supervise and run a live show or take over an artist's recording session for a day. But the university experience was destroyed for me because I rushed into it. I should have just enjoyed working for a year beforehand and just gotten myself set up first. I'm almost 25 and still playing catch-up on some things because I didn't take the time that my peers did to do everything at an even pace. Story 19. Trying desperately to hide who I really am deep down inside of myself to conform with what I thought I was supposed to be, or what my family wanted me to be, or what my friends wanted me to be. I hit rock bottom when I found myself just out of a highly abusive relationship and wondering how to put the shattered pieces of life back together. Story 20. Falling into a cycle of ennui. It was my freshman year of college, and I fell behind on some work because I missed the info given in class. I felt like it wasn't worth the effort to do the work since it was already late. So why put in the work for only partial credit? The problem arose because then it became easier and easier to ignore the work I had to do, until I just stopped doing work for class. Ended up getting kicked out of college because my grades were so bad and had to go to community college, and then back to a 4-year college. Still almost fell back into the cycle again, and eventually my master's. Whenever people ask about why I do what I do and how I got to where I am today, I always talk about how I love the work that I do. I find it's nicer than telling them my biggest motivation for working and getting myself to where I am has been my fear of falling into that cycle again and the knowledge of how susceptible I am to it. Still, I consider it my biggest mistake because I lost so many years on my career and potential family because of it. Story 21. Getting into competitive Super Smash Bros. Was the biggest mistake of my entire life. I got interested in tournaments in 2015 because I was beating all of the other kids in my school in Smash 3DS. I started going to Smash Wii U tournaments regularly and had aspirations of becoming a better player and being able to beat ranked players. I got addicted to the game, and my life revolved around it for 6 years, including my entire time in college. I would play for hours every single day and typically go to 3-4 tournaments every week. I studied engineering in college, but I commuted and spent as little time on campus as possible in hopes of grinding the game more. I spent my time in between classes and even during class studying gameplay footage, and sometimes I even skipped class to go to events. I forewent countless social opportunities in college because they interfered with the game. I bailed out of a Halloween party I got invited to because a top player was visiting my state and was attending an event that same night. And another time there was a girl who really wanted me to go to her 21st birthday party, and I turned her down since I had planned on going to a tournament that a ranked player that I thought I could beat was attending, as I was trying to rack up good wins to make it on my local power rankings for that season. I got decent at the game, but it was never enough. There were always players around me who were way better. Offline tournaments ended during the pandemic, and when they resumed, I slowed down a lot, and one day I had a blowout with my friend group in the scene and just quit competing. I deleted my social media and disappeared from the competitive scene. I still play the game online, though, under a new name, and struggle with the addiction, though, but it's nowhere near as bad as it used to be. If I had a time machine and could change the past, aside from the low-hanging fruit stuff like buying Bitcoin or Nvidia, I would stop myself from ever getting into competitive Smash. It was a black hole that cost me thousands of dollars and hours of my time, and prevented me from any chance of a good social life for those years. Competitive Super Smash Bros. Is the biggest regret of my entire life. I regret throwing away my prime years of socialization for something that I have nothing to show for today. Fortunately, I did still do well enough in college to graduate and get a good job, but I'll never get those years back. Story 22. Got injured and depressed, so I turned down an offer to sit on the bench at a D1 university who, once I healed, would decide if they wanted to give me later the scholarship we had talked about. Double regret not signing for them immediately so they couldn't back out and not just sitting the bench. Watched them play on TV, and I know I would have made the starting lineup since my injury didn't last as long as the doctors thought. Story 23. For me, it definitely had to be smoking weed. Now, say what you want about weed not being an addiction, but it most certainly turns into dependency. I started smoking the summer after my freshman year in high school. Quit caring about friends who actually had a positive impact on me. Couldn't be at any function without being high. Skipped important moments in my life to buy smoke weed. Drove high. Went to school high every day. Although I did well in classes, it made me constantly tired, requiring around 12+ hours of sleep, probably due to the lack of REM sleep you can get when smoking regularly. Lost job opportunities. Spent probably over $10,000 USD on it, and did it for years. But it wasn't just that. Weed caused me significant health problems, which I suspect is the issue with a lot of other people who smoke weed. After a while, at least once a month, I would end up in the hospital with cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, CHS, which is not just like the flu. The amount of discomfort and sickness you would go through would be enough to make you throw up so many times you passed out. For me, I couldn't move any part of my body without throwing up, and would lose most function of my arms and legs with how much fluid, nutrients I would lose. Your stomach would be in horrible pain and discomfort. But a symptom that lasted with CHS was the loss of appetite. I already am a pretty short and petite person, typically weighing around 105–110 lbs. I lost the ability to eat without smoking before, and even then my body would only crave bland food with no nutritional value such as ramen. I started losing weight rapidly, and was hospitalized in an eating disorder recovery center at 85 lbs on the verge of my body completely shutting down. When I hit about 95–100 lbs, I realized it was the weed, but it was too late. I quit weed, then was unable to eat anything for days and even weeks at a time. If I tried to get anything down, I would throw it right back up, which is how I ended up in the recovery center. It wore off a bit by then, and I was able to eat more, but I had gone right back to it, and the problem started all over again a few months after getting out. To this day, I wish I never had touched weed. I've been clean for months now, have an amazing job that required me to pass a drug test and make $9 more than what I was making, and I have no cravings to ever go back to it. I genuinely believe the reason why so many people who smoke weed get really skinny and develop heart problems is because of weed, and the dependency on using it to help eat and socialize. I would encourage anyone with children to watch out for the warning signs of drug addictions, and if you are a kid yourself thinking of smoking just to try it out, don't. It's not worth it. I promise you doing it one time is enough to make you want to keep going and going. I still have people in my life who barely passed high school, dropped out of college, and don't have jobs who smoke weed all day. I promise life feels so much more amazing when you can depend on yourself and your abilities. Find healthier habits that distract you. I lost a whole down payment on a house smoking weed and took forever to pay off my first car to my parents. Don't be like me. Get into something else and save up. Nothing but love and respect for everyone. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, like it. Be sure to write comments and share your stories.